Well. Yours truly just did a remote viewing on what Sheriff Nanos may be hiding from the FBI. You're not going to want to miss that. I have been watching Brian Etton's Back on the Case. Nancy Guthrie was never really left. He's just covering other cases intermittently. But man, he's done an amazing job, and that special, I don't know if y'all seen it, was amazing as well. And he has brought some news out around the Nancy Guthrie case in the last few days, which I decided to remove you on. The fact that you were learning that Nanos is not talking to the family, that they're directly and only choosing or being spoken to by the FBI directly and not the sheriff's office or anybody from the sheriff's office in Pima County, which is very interesting. Also, Brian reported recently that one of the workers in the sheriff's office asked for information to give to the FBI, that the FBI asked her to provide them with it. And Nanos was not happy about that, right? He was really not happy about that. Like, what the TF, dude? I mean, we know you've got a vendetta. We know you don't like them, but this isn't about you. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm talking to thin air here because it's crazy how arrogant he is. So I thought I would tap in to see what the hang is going on. Is Nanos actually hiding information from the FBI? Yes. Oh my God. I just did a remote viewing. This is not going to be a long video, y'all. But man, oh man, Nanos, you are one special cookie. You really are. I'm going to let you know what I saw in my remote viewing on what's going down with Nanos, what he's hiding from the FBI, and why they're not talking directly the Pima County Sheriff's Office to the family. Let's go. This video is sponsored by Psychic Source. And as most of you know, I'm a psychic medium. This is not a hobby for me. This is generally how I move through the world every day. And it's how I do this work on Nancy Guthrie and on every case I bring to you. I've actually worked for another company in this space before, so I know this industry from the inside. So when Psychic Source reached out to partner with me in this channel, I wanted to say yes immediately for all of you because I get it. And I know the difference between a platform that takes this seriously and one that doesn't. Psychic Source has been around for over 30 years. They screen every single advisor on their platform. These are not random people on the internet. These are vetted, reviewed psychics, and they offer readings by phone, by chat, or by video, whatever feels right for you. And they have a satisfaction guarantee, which I love because that tells you something about how seriously they take the integrity of their readers. If you've been sitting with something, a relationship, a decision, a loss, or something you just can't shake, I think it's worth having someone tap in with you. New members get readings starting as low as 60 cents a minute. And since you pay by the minute, you decide how long to chat based on your budget. No pressure, no packages, no waiting for answers either. Get help immediately by clicking on the link below. Try psychicsource.com/motive.means and let me know if you get a hit that blows your mind because I generally want to hear about it. Okay, thanks for listening. Let's get back to Nancy Guthrie.
Is a Pima County, Arizona official who is accusing the Sheriff Nanos, of scolding her for providing information to the FBI about the case. Listen to me when I say that again. Pima County official, it's actually the county assessor, and I'm going to get into all the details in a second, but the county assessor says the sheriff got mad at her for giving the FBI information related to the Nancy Guthrie case.
What? You heard that. I know you heard that when Brian first reported it a few days ago. We're going to keep listening, and I'm going to let you know what the dang he's hiding. Wow.
Because this really caught me off guard. I mean, I knew that there was drama and issues between the Board of Supervisors and the sheriff, but I didn't know that this issue existed between the county assessor and the sheriff. And all of this is coming from a report from the Arizona Republic and journalist Stephanie Murray. And she reports, and this goes back now to February, she reports that in February, the sheriff and the county assessor, a woman named Suzanne Druby, they had a telephone conversation, and the sheriff was upset that the assessor had provided information to the FBI. And this is what she said. She said, the tone of the call was unusual. And she said, we're sensitive to the fact that the sheriff is under a lot of stress with all of this, referring to the Nancy Guthrie situation, it means. So she said, we're sensitive to the fact that the sheriff is under a lot of stress with all this. But yes, there was a little bit of a negative interaction. It was inferred that we were creating a lot of additional work for the sheriff's department due to us providing this information to the FBI and then them having the responsibility to follow up on all of those leads that were provided. Sorry, I have something stuck in my throat. So the assessor said, I felt like there was an insinuation that I had done something wrong by cooperating with the FBI. At that particular moment, I felt like I was put in a position where I felt like I almost should apologize, where I know definitely that that was not something that I should be doing. Very bizarre. So what exactly did the assessor do to make the sheriff upset? Well, according to the Arizona Republic, Suzanne Druby says her office fulfilled a request for information from the FBI, a request.
Wait, her office fulfilled a request for information from the FBI, and NANOS did not like that. Wow. We've heard about his grudges with the FBI from a while back now. I think, in fact, it was Brian Enton that is an amazing, amazing journalist and first brought it out, that there was a history there between the FBI and Sheriff NANOS. But wow, this gets about as low as it goes. And wait till you hear what I just saw in my remote viewing session, y'all. Let's keep listening for a bit more, because I want you to really understand the situation here.
For information to aid in the Guthrie investigation. And Druby called the sheriff to tell him about it. It would make sense. She's the county assessor. He's the sheriff. They obviously know each other somewhat. So she calls him to tell him about it. And she says he was definitely frustrated. Those were the words she used. Definitely frustrated. Now, Druby is not revealing exactly what kind of information the FBI was looking for, which good on her. I mean, makes sense. She wouldn't want to give those kinds of specifics. But as county assessor, her office would be in charge of keeping track of property and tax assessments, sort of those kinds of things. So perhaps the FBI was trying to find records related to property or tax assessment.
Okay. I'm just going to say we have heard here, it's been reported briefly here because it was shown on the interview room when Monk's Intrigue was on. He told us that the A&T team are behind in their property taxes. And, as of May 1st, there was going to be a problem, right? So is that what this is about? I don't know. Let's just keep listening. I got a couple of things I want to share.
But Druby also said, and this is another quote, it seemed that he was very stressed, very frustrated. I wouldn't categorize it as yelling per se, as much as kind of scolding and expressing frustration with all of the leads he was receiving, their obligation to follow up on them, and that my office was actually doing more harm than good by providing more leads that they just had to follow up with. Now, Druby says her office's IT team actually came up with a report and submitted it to the FBI. And exactly what was in that report and why the FBI was looking for that information, we don't know. Again, perhaps a list of property owners in the area, something like that would make the most sense to me. But we don't know. At the end of the day, we don't know. And she didn't say, hey guys, more.
Okay. She didn't say. Well, I'm going to tell you because I thought this was so interesting. So we also hear, before I get into my remote viewing session, the newest that Sheriff NANOS is not talking to the Guthries. What the dang is going down there? So I'm going to remote view that for you as well today.
I want to go through some of these new things that Sheriff NANOS said. He was speaking to People magazine. I actually know the reporter. I met her when I was out there. She was also out there for a couple weeks right after Nancy went missing. And some of this stuff is interesting. I mean, there's some new developments here, and that's the thing about Sheriff Nanos that I've found is, when you can talk to him, if he'll answer his phone or whatever, sometimes he'll just start talking and he'll start saying things, and you're like, oh wow, some of this stuff is new, which seems like it's kind of what happened here with this People Magazine interview. So I'm going to get to Morgan Wright, former investigator and law enforcement expert, in a minute to kind of go over what some of this means. But let me walk you through some of this. This stood out to me the most. According to People Magazine and their discussion with the sheriff, he is no longer directly communicating with the Guthrie family and says those conversations are being handled by the FBI, which is interesting because remember, initially, it appeared that he was having communication with Savannah and with the Guthrie family, and he is technically in charge of the investigation still as the sheriff of Pima County. Remember, it was never handed over to the FBI. So the fact that he is acknowledging that he is no longer directly communicating with the Guthrie family and says those conversations are being handled by the FBI, there's been a lot of curiosity. Is Savannah Guthrie, are the Guthries getting frustrated with the sheriff based on all of this reporting that's been out there, that I've done, that's been out there, mistakes that have been made? Could they be frustrated, or were they still talking to him and happy behind the scenes? And it sounds like they're, according to the sheriff, no longer directly communicating with the sheriff. So I found that to be very interesting, and that is something new that I didn't know. He said, quote, and this is the sheriff, "The public is frustrated, even the Guthrie family." So they're also acknowledging that the Guthrie family is frustrated, which how can you blame them? I mean, I think that even though they haven't said that outright, how could they not be frustrated? I mean, it's now been more than 3 months, and they still have no resolution. They have no idea where Nancy is. And at the same time, there's sort of this controversy that continues to develop around the sheriff throughout this whole thing. So
Yeah. So let's see who's the one that chose not to continue contact. Let's get into the remote viewing sessions now. So when I tap in to why Nanos was so upset on this information being shared, I get lies, I get secrets, I get a vision of a safe behind a bookshelf. And I thought, in his work office? No, it looks like it's home office, his home office. I see, I got goosebumps. I get a manila, thank you for the validation, home office. There's a safe behind a bookshelf that's got a manila envelope in it with several cassettes. Got goosebumps. So when I go back in and I ask, like, I can just see him putting it in this vanilla envelope with tapes inside the safe. And I can see two people sitting in chairs, not in that office, but in his work office. And I believe them to be the A&T team. And I believe he interviewed them at the onset in private, in secret, because I hear secret. And I believe he taped the interview of them in secret, and those tapes are hidden in his home office in a safe. So the question would remain, what the hang, what the dang, did they say that is important enough to record and hide from the FBI? Very interesting and very surprised. I thought maybe it would be specific evidence, we know he delayed getting the, evidence or the cooperation to the FBI. He didn't supposedly want to work with them for 4 days. We know that he sent the DNA off to a private lab instead of Quantico. And we know he's, got a grudge with the FBI. But really, I am really quite shocked in this session that I did, this remote viewing session. I am also picking up that it's the family because of this specifically. Like, I feel he maybe got a little aggressive with the family. And I really sense that it was Savannah that said no more. She put her foot down to protect Annie and Tommaso. But I really feel like Savannah's the one that put her foot down that there would be no more contact, because if he taped interviews with them in secret because he's got some sort of theory that he's not sharing, and what was said to him is not worth handing over, I'm not 100% clear. I'm going to have to go back and get some clarifiers on what his motive is, other than he wanting to be the sole hero in solving this case. I mean, absolutely, that goes with his personality. I just don't understand what he's doing here. I'm not really clear. But I'm going to tap in a little bit more. I'm not feeling 100%. I had my grandkids, my granddaughter, she's 21 months, Rory on Friday, and took her to the jungle gym. And then my grandsons, we all met at the park Sunday morning, and then I brought them home and had them until yesterday. It's a holiday Monday here, so I'm pretty zonked. So I'm not going to tap in and do a lot of remote viewing today, other than those two things that I'm seeing, what I told you about, which is Bizarrio. Like, why is he trying to hide these interviews? What the F are on those tapes? I'm going to have to do another remote viewing for that later. But I really also get the sense that it was Savannah that put her foot down. No more nanos, because I really think he was, I don't want to say attacking the family, but I kind of feel like that may have been a word used, or how they felt in these interviews with him. Like, that's just what I'm sensing. So now I want to show you, I did a video with 3 really important remote viewings on Nancy Guthrie, and it didn't do well. And so a lot of you didn't see it. So I'm just going to play those 3 remote viewing sessions for you now. And let me know, if you didn't see them, then don't need to continue. Or if you saw them, rather, you don't need to continue watching. Let me know your thoughts on them if you haven't seen them. Let me just play. Why? I wanted to know what happened in that first hour where Annie and Tommaso arrived to the home, I believe at 11 a.m., yet they didn't call 911 until 12:03. So I did a remote viewing on that. Also wanted to know how she was taken out of the house, and also whether or not that blood was planted. I'm still not 1,000% certain, but these are the remote viewing sessions in case you missed them on these 3 issues. Let's watch now. Okay, so I just remote viewed. What happened? What was the conversation going down? Who was pushing the narrative? In other words, when the police first arrived to Nancy Guthrie's home and started chatting and taking notes and accounts of what A&T knew what happened. Got goosebumps again. I see them in the garage. I see a young officer taking notes on a notepad inside the garage. They tell him that they come in through the garage. He says, he asks what happens, and that I relay that they get the call that she didn't go to church that day, that her friend said she didn't show up to church. They come over to check it out. They enter through the garage. And I believe he asks them if they noticed the gate with the pot. And they say, no, we didn't, but they reference seeing the gate with the door rather, with the pot open, and seeing that propped open, but somehow they missed the gate. That's just what I'm hearing them saying. And they take notes through the garage. They take notes, and then they go tell him, okay, then what happens? Well, upon going in the house, everything looked normal. Everything looked normal. Nothing was out of place, although they had previously put stuff away that had fallen, as I described in my last session, remote viewing session earlier. And then they get to Nancy's bedroom, and they explain how they see her bed look like sheets over, and her slippers are there, and her phone and her purse is there, and everything is there except Nancy. And I see more notes being taken. And then I see, well, What did you do next? Well, we walked around the home. And then some point in time, he's walking with them and asks, did you not see the blood on the front porch? And I believe the answer is no, because their explanation is they walk around the home, but they don't see Nancy on the doorstep, on the porch. So they don't walk up there, and hence they don't notice the blood. That's the story that's being told. But I really sense that this officer, despite his being new, despite his being young and inexperienced, taking diligent notes and really listening to their narrative, which was, then what did you do before calling us? Well, we thought perhaps something happened to her because the doors are propped open. She's not here. All of her belongings are here. Her purse is here. And so we assumed there was a medical emergency, and we started calling around to rule that out before calling you. They pushed the narrative onto that detective, who I believe for a short little bit was like, okay, this might be plausible. But at the very same time, he was seeing some red flags in their story from the get-go. That's what I see. That's what I see. So let's do recap. I see the officer first arriving. They are in the garage. The garage door is open. And he asks them, okay, what's going on? Tell me the story. What's happening? They explain, getting a phone call. Their mom didn't show up to church that morning. Then they come over to assess what's going on. They enter through the garage. And then they go through the home, and he asks whether they see the gate propped open. And they say they didn't even notice the gate with the flower pot propped open. But they do notice the gate, or the door. I keep saying gate, the door rather, from the outside porch being propped open. And they enter into the home, and everything they say looks hunky-dory, despite the fact that I see they picked up her cell phone and neatly placed it in her purse in her room and turn over the sheets and put the slippers there to make it look like she was taken from her bed sleeping, which didn't happen. She was not in bed. No, she wasn't in bed. They were in that house when she got home. And I then see them going through the home. He's taking notes. And because they believed that something had happened, obviously, to her, because everything she owned was there, that maybe it was her having an accident. They walk around the house, they explain, and they don't see Nancy or the blood on the porch because they walked around the home, not up the steps, which makes sense because Nancy, you could see if she was on the porch, which totally makes sense. And so I do feel that they then say they called around to see if Nancy had somehow had an accident, called an Uber, called the hospital, take her to somewhere because she'd had a medical emergency. They pushed the narrative, but I also see the detective kind of not really sure whether he's buying it or not. It seems plausible. He sees some things that may not be explainable, but he's at this point in time, he's kind of going with the narrative. I'm going to go back in. Let's see if I get some. Okay, so I've gone back in and y'all, he asks, well, if you got here at such and such a time and they called it such and such a time, why are you only calling 911 at such and such a time? And they say, well, because they thought there was a medical emergency, they thought to call all the hospitals first. And he asked them for the hospitals they called. And they called the hospitals because he checks their cell phone, which is why he starts to buy into the narrative. The little effers actually took the time and did call because he verified their cell phones to see where they called. Now, I also believe they followed up to make sure that there was a call and how long it lasted and what was asked, but they did cover their tracks and they did call places and they were asked for a list of where they called. And I see him checking their phone to make sure that, well, one of them did call the hospitals, and I believe that. Okay, it is May 13th and 7:24 a.m. and I've been up and remote viewing Nancy Guthrie, and this is the remote viewing session at the beginning. I'm going to go back in and get more and come back and report back on what I get. But the first visions I get, and I asked, can I see what happened when the A&T team arrived February 1st at 11 a.m. is the time, I believe, as we've been discussing, that they arrived, the A&T team, to Nancy Guthrie's home after getting the call from her friends that she didn't go to church. I go in, I ask, show me, please, what happens at 11 a.m. when the A&T team arrived to look for Nancy. And I see them, they drive up to the home in front of the garage, actually. And they're kind of standing outside, like looking around for a brief few seconds, like almost like, what do we do? What do we do? You know? Definitely not like looking for a missing mother. Oh, goosebumps. It's like, yeah, it's really strange. It's like they're sitting around, like standing. I can see them kind of standing, like, what do we do? Like walking around. And then they see them, the garage door is opened, and I see them go into the house. And I get a flash of they pick something up in the room that I said, oh, the tall floor lamp in the living room, where in one of my viewing sessions, I figured that they were there when Nancy arrived home. When Tommaso dropped her off, they were already in the house. I told you that. And that they wanted to impose extreme fear and threat in Nancy, to Nancy. And she turns on the living room light, and there she sees this fucking mask. Excuse my language. I'll never forget that. I was doing a remote viewing session on my couch laying down, and I literally, my body jumped up. Anyways, I digress. Something fell, and I can see them picking something up off the floor, but I can't get a clear vision of what that item is right now. And I suspect it's really not so important, but I'm going to go back and try to get that vision in a second here. And then I see Annie in particular go in and fold open the bed to make it look like she was taken from her bed, like fold the sheets over, like a made bed, and it's like tossed over to make it look like. And I see slippers being placed, which is so fascinating because I'm like you, Karen. I love I'm a cozy girl. That's why I'm always wearing my house coat and my slippers. I see the slippers being placed right beside her bed, as if she would have like in habit, as part of her customary habit, would be to put the slippers beside her bed, and then when she would go to get out of bed, they would be right beside her, which is exactly interesting what I do, because I have bad knees and hips as well. And I wear either slippers or flip-flops in the house here to cushion my body from the hardwood, the laminate floors, and in my apartment here. And having some absorption really helps my joints. And so I suspect that Nancy also wore her slippers inside her house, often, all the time. And so interestingly enough, I see the bed sheet being pulled over, and then I see the slippers. Oh, I got goosebumps. It's always my validation. So now, and then I see, I noticed when Chris, sorry, I'm just getting full on confirmation, like full on like goosebumps here. Oh, and Chris McDonough showed a picture of the garage the other night, which we're going to talk about here. We have been and will be. I'm doing these remote viewings first, and then I'm putting the video together. So I'm sorry about the order of what I'm saying. And then I see, and I noticed their attention goes to inside the garage. And I so am curious because I was wondering when I saw it with Chris, I could see a light through these black metal doors inside the garage, light through the bottom. It's almost as if that is the door to her outside porch, where it looks like it's like a door into the house with a propped open door. I'm going to go and check the maps with when Ashley Banfield went through the house, and we got with Gray Hughes the map of the house, because I think that door, when I see their vision go to that door, is the patio door where they may have propped up the pots. So now I'm going to go back in. I just want to clarify that it's not that door. Okay, it's not the door that I thought it was. I verified that in the other video. But I wanted to replay the visions, the 3 remote viewings. I'm going to let you listen to a couple more minutes of this one, and then the last one about the blood. Thank you, everybody, by the way, all the new subscribers, everybody, all of you, for liking, sharing, commenting, hyping. It really helps me out a long way, and I really appreciate all of you. Thank you. A remote view and see if that is the door, because I can see their attention going, and then I lose the remote viewing. Like I said, I have trained in remote viewing years ago, and had really fallen out of practice. So I'm really getting back into practicing, and I'm able to hold, which I believe is pretty common actually, a remote viewing session for just a split seconds, like a finite amount of time. And so now I'm going to go back in and ask for what happens as they're looking at that door inside the garage, what I believe is the metal door that looks like lights, like daylight under it. Is that the door that goes to the outside porch where that door was propped with the pots? Because I have a feeling when they went back that morning, they staged the bed to make it look like she had been taken from her bed, her slippers there, whatever had fallen on the floor was picked up. Let's see if I can get a vision of that. And then I believe, my friends, they staged the pots. But let me go back in and verify that and come back. Okay, so I just went back in and asked for the same information, like at 11 a.m. when the A&T team arrived. And I see exactly the same thing when they first come in. It's like, okay, what are we going to do here? I see them go into the garage. Wow, wow, wow. Just see a black glove being put on a hand, and the hand stretching, almost like a surgeon putting his glove on and then stretching it when it, like, he lets it go, like, and it snaps. I see that. I don't see whose hand. I get goosebumps. I don't see, I feel like it's the T part of the team, but they both are wearing black gloves. Okay. It's 8:10 a.m. I've just finished my second remote viewing for this session for this video today on Wednesday, May 13th. And this shivers all over my body. I had said before many times that I thought the blood was staged, but I never actually remote viewed it or saw a vision of it. So I went in and asked how the blood got there. Whoa. So I remote view the porch. I'm taken to porch guy's face. Oh, okay. I have full-on goosebumps. Body goosebumps is my validation from my guides. Woo. Okay. I see porch guy. Porch guy is planting blood, I believe. I first see porch guy. And I see a bunch of commotion going on at the front door. And I believe all 4 people are there at this moment. I see a lot of commotion going on around the front door. And I had said to you in my other last video, I had a remote viewing session where I had seen things, but I also had a dream come in. And that dream was of Nancy in the kidnapper's place of residence where they took her, or the place they broke into to keep her. And she was tied by the wrists with duct tape and dirty and had blood on her nail, finger under her thumbnail, and was like rags and different colors of rags, like very colorful rags. Not rags necessarily, they just look dirty, like blankets and rags, like anything to cover her to keep her warm. So strange. But I wasn't sure whether or not they had removed her from the home via the wheelchair, or did they just have her sitting in one kidnapped? Well, boys and girls, we got a lot of information on this one. I see, again, as I first approach and ask to see the scene and how the blood got there, I see porch guys lighten up like the porch guy is there at the blood moment. And I see commotion going on in the front door. There's like 4, I believe. I believe the wheelchair is placed, because I don't know if they can get through the door. The wheelchair is placed at the front door. And yes, boys and girls, I had said they came in from the back, and I thought they may have left from the back. They carried Nancy, because the next thing I'm shown is the wheelchair outside, and Nancy is slumped in it. She's not conscious. She is not conscious at that door in the wheelchair. She is slumped over, not conscious. I had said that I felt that she was potentially drugged. I don't see the blood coming out of a syringe, but the next thing I'm shown is a syringe. And as I said to you, I believe she, in a prior remote viewing session, in other videos, I'm positive she ripped off a mask of one of the A and T team, well, the A of the T and A team, because she recognized the eyes. Of course, who wouldn't recognize the eyes if they were your, in my opinion, DAUGHTER? And panic, freak out ensued. And I do believe Nancy was sedated, then carried to the front door and placed in that wheelchair, which is all that commotion I'm seeing. And then I see her slumped over, and I see a syringe. I went in twice to see if I could see actual blood coming out of the syringe, and I don't. But I don't believe if you're slumped over, unconscious, put to sleep, I don't know what the TF they gave her, but they gave her something, and she is out. I can see her like slumped over in the wheelchair. And I get this vision, almost like this sense that the blood pushed out is almost like right at her face, like as she's slumped over in the wheelchair. I'm going to go back in again to verify this and come back. Let's go. Okay. I go back in. I just went back in and I see, I'm surprised because Nancy's carried to the door upright. She's still awake. She's carried to the front door, and God willing, they have this on the Nest camera. Okay. God willing, the police and the FBI have recovered this on the Nest camera because they're in the doorway. Oh, and they're propping Nancy up, and the wheelchair is brought to the home, I believe, placed on the front stoop, sideways at the door, where she is placed into the wheelchair. I see her being duct taped around the hands, around the mouth, and I see, God almighty, this is so fucking scary for her. I see the mask, the perp in the mask, the porch dude, crouch down beside her and say, Miss Nancy, now you're going to be quiet. And that's when I see the syringe. They've duct taped her mouth and her hands and placed her in the wheelchair. Well, placed her in the wheelchair, then duct taped her hands and her mouth. And I do believe gave her the needle. Somebody I have said before has connections to Oro Valley Hospital. Somebody connected to this. And I do believe they drugged her and placed her in that wheelchair, like I said, drugged her after they zipped her, tied her, and then drugged her. And she's snooping. And right before that, the perp says, so let me just go back through the order again. I see, as I ask how the blood got there, I see the first vision I get. I see porch guy, planted blood. In my opinion, I was going in there saying, hey, I need to be right here because these facts are going to come out. So this is not me and my ego. I always ask not to the benefit of my ego, but I need to see clearly, help me see the clear truth, not an egoic version of what I think happened. And I'm always happy to be wrong because the truth must prevail. And again, I don't see the blood coming out of the syringe, but I'm taken to the porch where I'm surprised there's commotion going on. And like I said, I can see them, like 4 of them, at the doorway with this kerfuffle. But the second time I go in, I see Nancy's awake, standing, like being supported on 2 sides, awake at the door. And I believe, oh, got goosebump validation. She was changed out of what she was wearing. By the time she's at the door, I believe she's wearing, I want to say like a light pink pajama, like dress, one piece, like a flannel pajama. And then the wheelchair is tilted facing the wall of well, let me just say, if I'm looking at the door where the Nest camera side is, not the wreath side, the wheelchair, the back is facing that wall, and she is taken out the door and plopped into the chair, wrapped up with duct tape, first over her wrists, over her mouth, and then the perp, disgustingly, porch guy, gets crouches down, and then looks at her in his eyes, and now, Nancy, Miss Nancy, you're going to be quiet. And she's drugged. I see the syringe. And while I don't see blood coming out of a syringe, that's the syringe I believe they knocked her out with. I'm pretty darn sure that they also then planted blood because she is unconscious after that. And I see her head snooping over. And I really believe I'm getting a feeling that there's then this syringe right at the base of her mouth with blood going out. If you made it to the end, you absolutely rock. Thank you for being here, everybody. Love and light. Do all the YouTubey things. See you in the next one. Cheers.